to share with friends and family, and subscribe if you haven't already. First up, I interviewed Dan Cottrell, who's a local artist. Hey everyone, I'm here with Dan Cottrell, who is a local artist in Duval. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I moved to Washington State from California in 1998, and I've involved myself in the arts here in Duval. And I just live down the street, and they have a very vibrant arts community in this area, so I just kind of got hooked up with that.
When did you start doing carving?
Well, my primary medium is printmaking. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's the act of making a handmade printing plate, making it up and printing.
Okay.
Part of making the printing plate involves carving.
Right.
Like a wood plate, for instance. And so that's where I began thinking of it in terms of carving just wood as an art form in itself.
What do you enjoy the most about your job?
Oh, there are so many things I enjoy about making art. The funnest part is interacting with people about my art. I enjoy sharing the story about it. Everything, literally everything that I make has a story of some kind.
What's one of the cool stories behind your art pieces?
I guess my favorite project that I worked on, and it happened in this area, there was a windstorm in 2006. It knocked down a bunch of trees, and the power was out, and it was winter, freezing temperatures out. It was a very difficult time for people. But at the time, as we were digging out and getting our power back, crews would come by the side of the road to cut the trees that had fallen down so that they could lift the wires. And so part of that, when they cut the trees back to the edge of the road, there was a round piece of wood there. And so I did a carving on a couple of those round pieces of wood. And I called the project Offerings to the Wind.
Oh.
And I ended up doing several. You might have seen the one
on your website.
Yes, on my website and also Novelty Hill.
Oh yeah, okay.
So that's kind of a continuation. But when I did that back in 2007 is when I started that project. At first it started off as a mystery, and everyone didn't know who was doing it.
Right.
And then next thing you know, there was a newspaper article, one of the local newspapers, mystery artist lurks, in the woods. No one ever saw me doing the projects, doing the carvings. Basically, I did the carvings at home. I went and traced the edge.
Right.
And I went home, I cut a piece of wood to that shape, did the carving, and then I just went and attached it. It was a very quick process. So very few people saw me out there doing it. It was a big mystery. But then after the newspaper article came a news feature. There's a mystery artist out in Woodinville, Duval area. And so people recognized my work right away. So that's when I was revealed, and the news station came down to my studio and followed me around to when I did another one,
Right.
So that was my funnest project, and the people really enjoyed it.
What have you been up to during quarantine?
The biggest issue that I've had with the quarantine so far is that all the summer art festivals have been canceled. And so luckily for myself, I have several custom commissions where people have asked me to make something for them. I have those to work on to keep me busy. And another thing I did was I installed some prayer flags on the trail out here.
Oh,
that was just something that was spontaneous.
And were they carved?
They were actually just fabric flags that I hung up over the bridge
really
on the Snoqualmie Trail. I recently had to remove it, but that was one thing that I did. That was in fact inspired by the pandemic and the struggles of people dealing with it.
How can the viewers see more of your work?
Well, you can see a lot of my work around downtown Duval. I have several pieces in public spaces around town. And you can also visit my website, www.danielcottrell.com.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Dan. We love seeing your work. Next up, we have Casey from SR3. Hi everyone, I'm here with Casey, who's the Executive Director at SR3. So can you tell us a little bit more about SR3?
Absolutely. SR3 is a relatively young nonprofit. We started off back in 2011 as a very grassroots organization, basically educating people about ocean conservation, our local marine wildlife, and why we needed a hospital for these animals. And we were like that for a very long time, just all volunteer group, until about 2016 when we were able to launch our field programs. And that included things like dolphin and whale health research, large whale entanglement response. And that's when we also actually started responding to animals that were sick or injured on the beach.
So how has COVID affected SR3?
Well, like most organizations, most nonprofits, we rely very heavily on volunteers. And when everything first started going on, of course, we were shut down, just like everyone else, and unable to use volunteers. Since that time, we've been able to keep our research and our response teams just within our own organization, our staff going with a lot of different safety protocols. But we realized that the animals are still sick and injured and they still need help, and people still want to make sure those animals are getting help. So we're continuing on with our programs. We have not been able to use volunteers the way we have in the past at this time, but we are using them sparingly and making sure everyone's staying very safe. So it poses a lot of challenges to nonprofit work with this kind of situation going on.
So with that being said, what are some of the rescues you've had to do in the past few months?
Yeah, so this time of year, it's harbor seal pupping season. And so most of the calls we're getting are about harbor seals. Mm-hmm. Sometimes these animals are just resting on the beach and we go check and they look fine and, we're able to just leave them. Other times they might be very skinny, or there's been some kind of human interaction that is not supposed to happen that scared mom off or something like that. So we've had to respond to these animals, but that is the number one patient we hear about this time of year. But recently we helped an elephant seal pup over on Whidbey Island. She's about 200 pounds and about 6 weeks old. Mm-hmm. That's a very challenging case. And while she could have used a hospital, she had been attacked by what we believe was a coyote. Right now, there's not a place for her to go. We are actually building a facility. And so eventually there will be somewhere for her to go shortly. But for now, we did the best we could treating her in the field and relocated her to a safe, wild area. And so far, she's done great. So we're excited about that.
So you mentioned that you're building a new hospital. So where will that be located and what will be happening in that hospital?
Yeah, so we have a property in the Des Moines Marina, which is about 15 miles south of Seattle. And there we'll have a couple of outdoor pools that the animals will be rehabilitated in, and also have things like a surgery and treatment room and animal food prep. Those are the kinds of things that will go on there. So the animals are usually there for a few months and until they're basically ready to return to the wild.
Right.
It's not like a zoo or an aquarium. The animals don't stay there with us long term. If an animal is not able to be returned to the wild, we work with the federal government and other zoos and aquariums to find out if there's someone that could provide it long-term care.
So you see a lot of injured animals, I'm assuming, because you're in a hospital for them. What is the biggest threat that you're noticing that is causing all these animals to become sick or injured?
Yeah, there's a wide variety of things that we see, but often I think the biggest thing I can say is that almost all of this relates back to human impacts on the ocean. So whether that's something like an entanglement in fishing gear or plastic or ingested plastic, we see that, of course. But we also just see things like diseases due to warming waters or interactions with humans or dogs on the beach. If anyone does find an animal that they are concerned about, whether it's injured or there's just too many people around, etc., you'd want to make sure to provide them the Stranding Network hotline number, which we can get that number for you to give to your audience, because it's really important that they call that number right away so that somebody can respond and check the animal out.
Okay, I'll definitely add that too in the description.
Great.
How can the audience help SR3?
Yeah, everybody knows that these are really incredibly challenging times, particularly for small nonprofits. And I think there are several different ways people can help. Of course, donations are always greatly appreciated. And I like to make sure everybody knows that it doesn't matter the size of the donation, anything helps to get our hospital going and to just help these animals. But there's also other things you can do, such as helping spread the word. So sharing our social media channels, and really telling your friends and family members about who SR3 is and what we do, getting other folks interested. We also have an Amazon wish list, so a lot of people really enjoy being able to order something specific that helps us get the hospital set up. And of course, signing up to volunteer. We love volunteers. As we mentioned, right now is not a great time to use volunteers, but we will be heavily volunteer-based once the hospital is up and running later this summer. And so we hope to be able to bring people in at that time.
And I'll definitely put the link to your website in the description. And then also, if you could shoot me an email with the Amazon wish list, I'd also like to include that.
That'd be great. Happy to do that.
Thank you so much for being interviewed today. It's great learning about all the things you're doing to help these animals.
Thank you. We really appreciate it. And thank you for helping spread the word about who we are and help protect our marine wildlife.
Of course. Bye.
Bye.
Make sure to check out their website to see all the great work they're doing. Tune in next time for more inspiring stories from the local area. Make sure to like this video and love your life.